It's time to start talking about a concept I'd like to call AI sobriety, because I think it's something I want to normalize. And I do believe that AI has become less of a tool and more of a substance for many people, including myself. But before I get into it, I want to acknowledge the term AI and what I'm talking about specifically relates to large language models. So I'm talking about things like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. Oftentimes, AI with some clever marketing is used as a broad brush to describe every machine learning tool that has existed for the last several decades. I have a script written here, and so I'm going to read a little bit of it, but I'm also of the mindset that I want this to feel incredibly human. So I'm going to look at my little screen here, and I'm also going to ramble a bit off script, because I think that's the thing that makes humans talking so interesting in the first place. So get some tea, get cozy, and let's go ahead and discuss AI sobriety. So why do I want to be AI sober? Well, my name's Mel, and I'm an artist, a writer, and an educator, and I've been doing those three things for the last 13 years. And those are all professions that are deeply threatened by the idea of large language models. I do want to acknowledge that I still do use aspects of machine learning and algorithms in my work, but I do not use large language models. And you can read about my specific AI policy through the link in the description below. But I am not your typical Luddite. I grew up loving computers and new technology. I have a tattoo of a mouse cursor, and I also have one of a motherboard. I worked at Apple for half a decade, and I was painting my computer like an illuminated manuscript. I used to love being the first person to try out a new technology and to share it with others, or to show how folks could benefit from a new thing. So when ChatGPT was released, I tried it, and I had fun. But the speed and development and subsequent harms of these products are in direct opposition with my values. They are stealing power and potable water. They are creating weapons of social contagion that are harming our society wholesale. And they are polluting entire populations with noise and fumes. They are causing people to also experience severe delusions and mental health crises. And to top it all off, the flagrant contempt of the CEOs that want to replace and devalue the labor of workers like myself is a deep reason to refrain from their use. AI is often said that it's just a tool, but I firmly believe that it's an addictive substance. These tools are designed to be addictive. They're designed to get you to use them as much as possible. They engineer dependence and forced adoption, acting like a friend, a therapist, or a lover. This is a choice in building dependence into users. This forced adoption is happening constantly through clever little UI tweaks, like the summarize button in Gmail. It makes the tech incredibly insidious. These companies are desperate for humans to use it for everything as often as possible. From easy-to-click bisexual colored buttons appearing in the most common UI locations to overriding our Google searches with AI summaries, the heavy hand to encourage the ubiquitous use of this technology is really hard to miss. There are people in the Bay Area getting paid $500,000 a year to make you click that sparkle emoji button. Again, I worked at Apple as a tech literacy educator for half a decade, which means that I can spot a heavy-handed design choice like an invasive plant. These things are trying to take over everything. They are trying to force widespread adoption as a way to point shareholders to big numbers of users, despite the fact that these companies are bleeding money. More importantly, the tool itself doesn't have a clear purpose. It's a general purpose transformer, which that's the thing that GPT actually stands for. So some people are using it to write code and scientific research, while others are using it to isolate from their human community and perform a ritual with the electrical towers of Bakersfield, California. This makes the tech feel like a slippery substance, a substance that is killing our ability to think for ourselves. And I don't want to shame anyone for using them, but what I want to do is question their actual use value. People have become warped into asking chat for everything, while gathered in public with friends, something I legitimately hear when I'm out in San Francisco. College students are using these bots to write their papers and do college for them, while their human bodies are taking on the debt. With student loan debt, the idea of taking it on was justified in the past because of the notion that the knowledge we acquire could never be repossessed. But now, with this offload to AI, many young people will be trapped between a paywall and debt to access their knowledge. We feed these machines our ideas, our worldviews, our creativity, and we ask it to spit out efficient, productivity-maxing, sales-converting, corporate-approved regurgitations of our perspective on the world. But creativity isn't efficient. It requires failure. Mistakes are where we find our voice. It requires rest and meandering just as much as active production. If we choose to give up the struggle required to find our voice, we will uncover that these text and image generators are really just Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Like, yeah, we can walk through a new world expected of us by these corporate slop factories, but our voice is gone. We sacrificed it, and we sold it as data when we signed the terms and conditions. The crisis is that we're abandoning boredom, connection with our fellow humans, and connection to being out in nature as a place where we find our voice. We need to recognize that the use of generative AI in place of our creative intuition is a corrosive act of creative death. That's why I'm out here in nature filming this. I want to convince you to get outside instead of asking chat. Tech tools can empower us, yes, but large language models are truly a kill switch for our intuition. They support every idea with a resounding and enthusiastic, yes, what a great idea, let's workshop that. They turn us into hyper-productive content creation slot machines. I don't want to be that. I'm not interested in that. I'm consistently inconsistent. I'm imperfect. And I'm not ever going to be a chatbot. We are fueled into creating waste, not art. And I'm calling on you to resist using generative AI whenever possible. So the rest of this video essay is going to be why. I did some of my best work this year while living completely AI sober. I do my best writing while I am sitting at the same bench in the foothills of Mount Diablo, or when I am outside in a beautiful place like this, watching the land adapt to its seasons. I speak into voice memos inviting my main collaborator, my spouse, who's standing behind the camera, a person who studied and works in cognitive science, to give me feedback on my ideas and my writing. He has a clear grasp on this technology's risks and impacts on the creative process. Nature is my muse, where quiet moments that some might classify as boredom actually reveal the ideas that are fermenting in my mind. Humans have always required seasons of rest to allow their ideas room to breathe and expand and then contract through editing and collaboration. And you're probably thinking, wow, this person is a total Luddite. And yes, you are right. But after learning about the real history of the Luddites in Brian Merchant's book, Blood in the Machine, I want to claim that title back. The original Luddites were radicals. They were skilled workers, knitters and weavers that had their ability to feed themselves threatened by bourgeoisie entrepreneurs. Sound familiar? These entrepreneurs were ready to cause them economic harm by replacing their labor with machines. As an artist, a writer, and an educator, these are three jobs that are directly threatened by large language models. These are things that the AI revolution wants to make obsolete. I deeply relate to the Luddites. I absolutely hate that people can think that they're being artists by just putting things into a fucking chatbot. It's not art. It's a skill issue. You're not willing to put in the work that's required of you to become an artist. The work is worthwhile. The entrepreneurs of that time, the early 1800s in England, left more than 50% of these skilled workers unemployed. They left them to starve, and that was the spark of the Industrial Revolution. The original Luddite uprisings, where they would go into the factories and break the machines, allowed their operators to start to capitulate to fair wages and working conditions. These were the seeds of the first labor unions. If we didn't have the Luddites, we wouldn't have a 40-hour work week. We wouldn't have an 8-hour work day. We wouldn't have paid sick leave. The Luddites broke ground in giving us labor rights, which is incredibly important. And I think one of the biggest things that we need in the time of AI are really strong unions. Emboldened by the machines that replaced workers, these entrepreneurs were truly just laying off everyone who wasn't an orphaned child. Being a Luddite is not just rejecting the technology wholesale. Being a Luddite is recognizing your labor power. It's about taking responsibility for the ways that technology can be used for good and the ways that it can be used for harm. In my eyes, as a working class person who spent years under the thumb of authoritarian workplaces, working many of my years in retail with bad bosses, workers deserve power. And when we look at how the Screen Actors Guild last year won huge protections through their strike, more of this has to come. The technology is not what's bad about AI. What's bad about AI is the people that are in charge and how they want to weaponize and monopolize as many aspects of our life as possible. They want to consolidate power. They want to shape a world that serves them and their ruling class friends. They don't give a damn about us workers trying to make ends meet. CEOs like Sam Altman are seriously delusional with their desire to build AGI, or artificial general intelligence. Their promises around it seem to lead to a desire to put the suffering of the original Luddites onto every human with an office job, and then some. The concept of AGI is a machine that would destroy the labor force as we know it, and the ruling class is foaming at the mouth at the very notion. We should have massive skepticism at these entrepreneurs and their innovations. Now, I've used LLMs. I can't deny that. When the release of ChatGPT first got widely publicized in the end of 2023, I had just quit my job working for Apple. I found myself in a weird place, pulled into possibility and the promise of efficiency, and so I was compelled to try it. In my art practice, I was finally connecting to my own personal creativity again after leaving the grasp of Apple's pretty cult-like atmosphere. I felt clueless about the business aspects, though, and I believed the hype of AI. Maybe these machines could help me be successful at the very thing art school never prepared me for: teaching outside of academia or selling my work outside of galleries. What I found is that the longer that I used these chatbots, there was an increasing pressure to work harder and unsustainably. I was addicted to the novelty of being able to solve problems and move the needle on my business, even though the majority of the suggestions didn't work and made my work sloppy. Instead of resting, I would remix scraps, generate more bad ideas, share more of my data in exchange of a promise of a clear path forward that I longed for. I'm an anxious person. I have depression. And so the certainty of these machines seemed really seductive. Before I knew the harms of the tech, it seemed like these chatbots would be a tool for figuring out how to get better at the whole running a business thing. And I could learn how to phrase things, how to be a better copywriter, and how to create compelling language that would connect my work to my ideal audience. I had no idea what I was doing, and instead I was just making a bunch of trash. I watched videos, though, hyping up the tech right here on YouTube. The pro AI content creators told me that the more I fed the LLM about me and what I wanted to build, the more that I could get done and the better I would be as a writer, as a business owner. And as an optimist, I wanted to be a good, productive little worker. I had fully drank the Kool-Aid of the American culture. I wanted to be an effective little small business owner and be super productive with my time. I could use these tools to build a successful business. I wanted to be able to pay my bills and make money, so it was an economic imperative. Sharing my data would have a net benefit towards my goals. That's the selling point in theory, right? As a workaholic, conditioned by the Protestant work ethic that is so prevalent in the United States and the unhealthy habits of art school, AI was a terrible genie that I had at my fingertips. Just like scrolling, I became lulled into an addiction. I wanted to know the next steps through this instant gratification machine. trying to get answers and sneaking in more work than one should is highly habit-forming. When things would go badly in my business, like launching something or having a YouTube video flop, I would find myself late at night after my partner went to sleep, shamefully, desperately asking the AI to write better titles and thumbnails for my channel here, or to revise my sales copy. But everything that it output was garbage. I would read back the ideas and feel covered in a goo of slime. None of it sounded like me, and all of it felt wrong. My intuition started getting louder and louder, saying that I should probably stop. And that is when I started to learn about the people behind the tools. And these people behind the tools made me immediately shift away in horror. I should have never shared my personal data with any of these services. As it turns out, by using a large language model, I was actually tractor beaming my soul into a data mulcher. Creative ideas need to be generated by you, by your brain, and by your intuition. That's how you produce things of quality that you actually care about. These algorithms are designed to take advantage of you. They're designed to seduce you into sharing far more than what is safe. They are designed to addict you, to trap you, to convince you that if you don't use them, you'll be left behind. And if you are paranoid, they could even convince you to isolate yourself from your family. They are engineered to get you to drop your guard and to keep returning. But it's the same premise with social media algorithms. They sprinkle in enough novelty to give users FOMO, and then connect them to something that they might be searching for, like you clicked on this video on a social media platform. But then the goal of YouTube is to show you ads. You probably watched an ad before this video and somewhere in the middle of this video, and you'll probably watch another ad at the end, and that's its goal. They want to make money. These ads that we're so used to on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, this complete sea of ads is coming to all of the large language models as they struggle to prove profitability. The enshittification is inevitable. It's important to remember, though, that these machines can't output quality in the human sense. This isn't another brain we're working with. AI chatbots aren't actually thinking machines. They are complicated prediction machines. What they do is they simply output what they think the next word will be that will be most coherent, like a robotic customer service agent. All they're doing is trying to predict what we want to hear, which is why so many people say that they sound sycophantic. They sound like they're just blowing smoke up our ass, because they are. AI isn't thinking. AI is regurgitating and remixing. It often takes on the corporate lingo of living, laughing, and loving at your 9 to 5 to create you a 10-step marketing plan for your great idea. All encouraging endless working instead of resting. All selling more and more of this sycophancy slop to prop up bad ideas that should be weeded out. But because of the hype bros, it seems impossible to escape this tech. It feels like you can't avoid it completely. And to be honest, especially living in the Bay Area, I feel like an organic farmer surrounded by giant monocropping farms using poisonous pesticides. While common pesticides can cause massive harms to honeybees, these chemicals do allow farmers to produce food faster and more efficiently at a larger cost to the ecosystem. It depletes the soil. It is destroying the earth. That's precisely why we long to buy organic produce or support small family farms. Those are the ones that are avoiding these practices and products. And here's the thing, organic farmers often run into pesticides blowing in the wind, leached into the water supply, and sometimes their crops fail. I bring up the organic label because I recognize AI's ubiquity and adoption isn't something that I can prevent by being one of the few standing alone, abstaining from the use of large language models. I can just invite you to try out being AI sober with me. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to recognize the monocropping of so many around us that are using the tech. And when I say monocropping, you might start to notice when you hear scripts with very specific types of turns of phrase, or you start reading Substack newsletters that have a very specific way of formatting their writing, it becomes really clear how many people are using these bots for their writing, how many people are allowing their own intuition and their own voice to be lost to this Ursula. And it's really upsetting. As an artist and writer, as someone who's so focused on craft, whose entire body of work is helping other people to develop their craft and to develop their artistic voice, it is absolutely despairing to me to see how much and how quickly this is taking over the parts of making art and writing and actually doing this work that I do of running retreats and making video essays feel less and less important. It feels like, again, like the monocrop farms, right? They're all around me, and I'm just sitting there with my little fruit stand trying to sell you some carrots. But at the end of the day, I recognize that what I'm asking for, sobriety from this tech, is a hard thing to do. Beyond the places that we normally consider to be work, these large language models are having even deeper influence into our deep need for human connection. So many of these companies, especially Meta, are trying to use it to solve loneliness. People are falling in love with their chatbots and proposing to them. They're worsening their OCD, and they're feeding all of their thoughts, dreams, work, horoscopes, tarot readings, and ideas into a chatbot that's collecting all of that data and feeding it into two places. One, into data miners who are going to use it to sell you products to solve all of your problems that you're feeding it. And two, to fascists who want to do a surveillance state. And if you don't know about the company Palantir, boy howdy do I have some stories for you. Now, if you're thinking, hey man, that's escalating real quickly, let me get into it. Ask these following questions yourself, and they might help you to use AI a little bit less. Is this actually helping me? Or is it just creating a bigger mess for me to clean up later? Am I getting closer to clarity? Or do I feel more confused and drained when I use this? Is my work actually aligned with my intuition, my values, my beliefs? What are the values and beliefs of the companies that are in ownership of my data and my ideas? I answered those questions in my journal and immediately found clarity. I had to stop cold turkey. No more AI. I was hooked and killing my own intuition. I was killing my own knowing and my own self-trust. I was falling into a trap of perceived efficiency and certainty when in reality, I was digging myself into a hole. So I deleted the apps and I stopped using AI. I need to return to the fact also that I am a visual artist. I started my business in 2023 doing freelance illustration for clients as my primary way to make money. A space that is directly now threatened by generative AI image models. That work has completely dried up. What once made up a large chunk of my income has completely run dry. My personal art is all about nature, about developing a real relationship with the world around me as demonstrated in Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. It meant that I had to stay aware of how much these tech companies were taking. And as it turned out, what they are taking is a frightening amount. My fury with losing that job led me to research. I read Empire of AI by Karen Hao and learned even more about how these companies are stealing resources like fresh water and energy, how they are polluting cities with methane and noise en masse, how they are using labor of people in the global south and taking advantage of them and subjecting them to horrific images and data, all for them to weigh the algorithms that allow these LLMs to work. These companies, with their giant data centers, are causing the basic needs of Americans to quadruple in price. Things like energy and basic needs are up because of the need for these companies to hoard wealth and power. And why? because they need to create their AGI. They need to make some delusional Zizian god creature in superintelligence. This is absolutely unhinged. And this brings me back around to the idea of palantir. So beyond the way that AI was impacting the way that I thought, and my intuition, and all of my ideas, and all of the data that I had shared previously with the chatbots, all of those things now belonged to the ability for a company like Palantir to create a social credit score system about me and everyone else who uses these technologies. Palantir is an AI company that is a military company funded by Peter Thiel with Pentagon contracts to spy on American citizens. They decided that they wanted to name their surveillance company after the seeing stones of the Dark Lord in Lord of the Rings. Cool. I relate a little bit more to the hobbits here, and honestly, did reading Tolkien make these people truly decide, oh, you know who's got some great ideas in here? Sauron. Yeah. What the fuck? These companies are all complicit in engineering the growing authoritarian and fascist surveillance state in the United States. That is who you're giving your data to when you just ask chat, babe. Be realistic. We need to actually think about the implications of free services and what we are sharing. These people that are running these companies are my neighbors in the Bay Area, which is why I want to move away. They are deluded into thinking that they are building a godlike superintelligence that loves them and will not harm them, and that is a reason to push forward at lightning speed. And this is their justification for stealing resources like power and water that we need to survive and displacing mass swaths of our labor. These people want to be kings, and we shouldn't let them. Sly marketing tactics have made these technologies seem totally harmless. They seem like simple tools that we should use. Again, if we don't use them, someone else will, right? They will hit their goals and run their business better and faster than we do. If my goal is to build a creative retreat center to help people get connected to nature and to their creative intuition, their human intuition, smart business advice would say I should use AI to help me build email sequences, better sales pages, effective content strategies to increase my reach. Won't this help me scale faster? But I think all of that is bullshit. At the end of the day, I think what people want more than ever is anti-AI, is deeply human, is really the opposite of this propaganda. I fell into the belief of all of this until it came from my work and my livelihood. I was in the mindset that it was fine, it was just a tool, until I knew how... I believed that it was just a tool until I started to realize all of the harm that these people are wrecking. When I was reading Blood in the Machine, I learned a common term so often used in tech, innovation, actually originated in referring to the processes that eliminated human labor. Innovation is not a good word. Innovation is anti-human. That book is an incredible one, and you should truly read it. And it solidified my AI sobriety into a values-aligned abstinence. This really comes down to the fact that it's a class issue. It's a labor rights issue. And it's a privacy issue. Big time. Simultaneously, with AI, we're giving away our intuitive sensibilities and our human potential. If we are giving away our intuitive sensibilities and our human potential, what are we going to have left? What is going to be the thing that gives us a reason to live? If my writing and my thoughts here in this video have made you start feeling AI sober curious, I would love for you to run an AI sobriety experiment with me. I had to move because I'm currently in Costa Rica and it is going to storm any second now. But if you currently use a large language model, I want you to try asking yourself these questions in order to determine if you'd like to take a break or step back from it a little bit more, or maybe join me in AI sobriety. First, ask yourself, does this allow me to hear myself think, or does it make it harder to hear what voice is my own? Next, ask, why do I feel compelled to use this tool? Is it common in my community, in my industry, in my profession? Am I friends with any artists, writers, teachers, or other folks whose jobs have been impacted by the rise of this tech? What are their thoughts on the issue? Could I have a phone call with them? Do I want to act in solidarity with them? Next, try asking yourself the question, when you use it, do you feel pressured to work more? Or do you think that the work that you create is truly of quality? Think about what you thought was quality before you used the chatbots too. Next up, are you aware of the values of the companies creating the particular large language model that you use? Are they in alignment with your core values? I would be curious to know in the comments below if you are convinced to take an AI break or to join me in solidarity and try some AI sobriety for yourself. I'm not asking you to have perfect sobriety from this tech. I realize that there are a lot of situations where you have no choice but to interact with it, especially at work. I'm asking you to attempt to remain sober from the social manipulation aspects of using these LLMs and the ways that they can genuinely harm you, especially if you're using it for things like therapy. If you want some community around this, join my Discord. It's free. There's a link down below, and I host creativity clubs on there once a month where we focus on human connection and making things with our hands. They're free, and the vibes are AI sober and shame-free. Despite having a bit of a doomer attitude around AI and recognizing, in fact, that these companies are bad, I don't think that language models themselves are evil in and of themselves. I am really excited about the increasing availability of small, open source language models that we can run on our own computers, keeping our data private. Tech tools that put privacy first, outside of the extractive systems, give me hope. Instead of AI, I put all of my ideas into an offline note-taking app called Obsidian. I'm not sponsored by them, I just really like to use it. And all of my ideas live there privately on a giant kind of mushroom network. And it's amazing. I love to use that tool, and I think that using technology for our ideas is a good thing. But it's important to think about our data. I like Obsidian because it's private. Though it's important to know that if you're going to build some kind of idea bank for yourself or digital garden, it requires work, like a real garden. I usually sink about 1 to 3 hours per week to maintain, tag, and sort my garden. But there, my ideas grow slowly from seeds with their companions to one another. The act of tending to the organic garden of my ideas and curating the connections manually is really a worthwhile endeavor. My Obsidian reminds me that my ideas and my musings have value as an artist and a writer and an educator. This entire essay started out there as seeds in May. I'm filming this in December. I've been slowly collecting bits, pruning, tending, and I want to grow what I share here in a way that's purposeful and sustainable and doesn't just fit some quick clip that's going to be easy for the algorithm. My business moves much more slowly than others in my niche, and I'm okay with slow growth. I am more interested in moving at a speed that allows me to consider how I will feel when I arrive, rather than chasing the most efficient path to get there. I want to build a retreat center, and doing something like that fast seems counter to the idea itself. I believe that AI tools, like large language models, or really small language models, will have their best use when they're out of the hands of these Sauron-inspired data-hoarding entrepreneurs. We don't need artificial general intelligence. I think that ambition is just the ego of white men in Silicon Valley. As a society, we need to stop funding the dreams of deluded billionaires. Their bubble is going to pop, and it's going to cause massive economic harm to so many working class people. We don't need or want more massive data centers. We don't need or want more slop video generators. Do you really want to watch videos of AI-generated cats here on YouTube? Is that genuinely what you find fulfilling? If so, I don't know how the hell you watched this whole video, but cool, I guess. I have faith that what we actually want is to put our eyes and our hands upon human craft upon real art, upon real music made by people. It's transformative beauty. And remember that art and writing and music, things that AI purports to do for us, are the things that give our lives meaning and depth. Let AI do the dishes, and maybe let AI figure out making taxes a little bit easier. And no shade to my accountant, who's really amazing and does lots of great work for me. But leave the real work of human ingenuity to us. I would love to start a movement with you and invite you all to be AI sober alongside me. My goal isn't to shame you, but to inspire your humanness with gentle compassion and invite you to be creative once again. Let's shape the culture that we, artists and creative humans, want to see, not what venture vulture capitalists envision. I really recommend considering how AI aligns with your values. Our values are enacted through our habits, and our habits become culture. And it's dangerous to let AI become infrastructure for our lives. We get to decide what is normal and what is best for us. I'm going to put some suggestions in the pinned comment below of some ways that you can also just make the effort to be AI sober. And I hope that this essay and watching it in full gave you a foundation to consider as you navigate your own relationship to AI, your personal, professional, and holistic sense of life, and what it means to be a human living on this planet. Remember that pleasure and joy in dark times is radical, and the process of being creative is magic. Being creative is a spell. It's our intuition. Make art. That is what you should be doing with your human intelligence. If you want to get deeper in touch with your human creativity, I made a self-directed podcast this year with only human intelligence to guide you through a break from big tech and into your human intuition once again, called The Hiker's Way. I'll put info on that in the description below. And you should also explore my website that I have spent the last 6 months really crafting to be a fun place to explore on the internet. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you're still here and you decide that you want to watch another video, I'll put a couple of on screen right now. But until next time, stay creative, find your own ways to persistently bloom, and thank you for considering the idea of joining me in AI sobriety.